What if I told you the story of America you know is incomplete? History is often written by the victors, and in the process, countless incredible stories and unsung heroes get lost in the footnotes. Today, we are pulling back the curtain on the hidden history of the United States. We'll explore forgotten figures and pivotal events that have been overshadowed for far too long, but are absolutely essential to understanding the nation we live in today. From a spy who saved the first president to the dream of an all-black state, these stories will change the way you see American history. Let's start during the Revolutionary War, a time of immense uncertainty. The fate of the fledgling nation rested on the shoulders of one man, General George Washington. But his life was in constant peril, not just from British bullets, but from plots within his own ranks. In 1776, a conspiracy was brewing right in New York City, aimed at assassinating Washington and sabotaging the Continental Army. The plot involved members of his own elite guard. So how was it foiled? The hero of this story isn't a famous general or a statesman. He was an enslaved man named Cato. Cato was the personal servant of a man named Samuel Fraunces, the owner of the famous Fraunces Tavern, a popular meeting spot for patriots. Through his position, Cato overheard whispers of the plot. He learned that one of Washington's own bodyguards, Thomas Hickey, had been bribed to poison the general's meal. Realizing the gravity of the situation, Cato faced an impossible choice. Reporting the plot could put his own life in grave danger, but he knew he had to act. He courageously went to Samuel Fraunces, who then alerted Washington. An investigation was launched. Hickey was arrested, court-martialed, and ultimately hanged in front of a crowd of 20,000 people. Cato's intelligence, his bravery, and his loyalty saved the future first president of the United States. Yet, for centuries, his name was almost entirely erased from the narrative. His story is a powerful reminder of the hidden contributions made by enslaved people to the cause of American independence. Now let's jump forward to another hero of the Revolution, a figure celebrated in some circles but whose full story is only now being understood. You might have heard of Casimir Pulaski, a Polish nobleman who came to America to fight for liberty. He's often called the father of the American cavalry for his brilliant tactical skills and his role in organizing the Continental Army's mounted forces. Pulaski was a fierce warrior, saving George Washington's life at the Battle of Brandywine and fighting valiantly until he was mortally wounded at the Siege of Savannah in 1779. He is honored with statues and parades, a true revolutionary hero. But there's a fascinating, hidden dimension to his life that modern science has only recently uncovered. For over a century, there were questions about the remains buried under his monument in Savannah. Were they really his? In the 1990s, the bones were exhumed for study. Anthropologists were puzzled. The skeleton showed features that were distinctly female, like a delicate facial structure and a wide, rounded pelvic inlet. But it also had injuries consistent with Pulaski's documented battle wounds. For years, the findings were a mystery. But with advancements in DNA technology, researchers were finally able to match the skeleton's mitochondrial DNA to one of Pulaski's known relatives. The conclusion was astonishing. The remains were indeed Pulaski's. And the skeletal evidence strongly suggested that General Casimir Pulaski, the father of the American cavalry, was intersex. This discovery doesn't change his heroism or his military genius. Instead, it adds a profound layer of complexity to our understanding of history and identity, showing that people have lived outside of simple binaries for centuries, even our most celebrated heroes. Next, let's turn to an event that reshaped the world, a catastrophe that started not in a foreign land, but right here in the United States. We all know about the global pandemic of recent years, but what about the one that struck a century earlier? The 1918 influenza pandemic, often mistakenly called the Spanish flu, was one of the deadliest disasters in human history, killing an estimated 50 million people worldwide. And its ground zero was likely an army camp in Kansas. In March 1918, a cook at Camp Funston reported sick with the flu. Within weeks, over 1,000 soldiers were ill. As these troops were deployed to Europe for World War I, they carried the virus with them, unleashing a global firestorm. The pandemic came in 3 waves, with the second wave in the fall of 1918 being unimaginably lethal. Unlike typical flu viruses that are most dangerous to the very young and very old, this one disproportionately killed healthy young adults between 20 and 40. Cities were overwhelmed. Hospitals overflowed, and morgues couldn't keep up. Public life ground to a halt. People wore masks, schools and theaters closed, and public gatherings were banned. Sound familiar? Despite its immense impact, the 1918 flu was quickly overshadowed in public memory by the end of the war and the Roaring Twenties. It became a kind of hidden apocalypse. However, its legacy is undeniable. It revolutionized public health, leading to the creation of national health organizations and spurring research into virology and epidemiology that we rely on to this day. It's a stark lesson in how quickly societies can be brought to their knees and how quickly they can forget. Finally, let's explore a forgotten dream from the American West. After the Civil War, the promise of 40 acres and a mule for newly freed African Americans was largely unfulfilled. Facing violence and discrimination in the South, many began to look for a new promised land. One of the most ambitious visions came from a man named Edward P. McCabe. McCabe was a lawyer, a politician, and a visionary who served as the Kansas State Auditor, one of the most prominent black elected officials of his time. But he had a bigger dream. He looked to the newly opened Oklahoma Territory and saw an opportunity to create something unprecedented, an all-black, self-governing state. He founded the city of Langston, Oklahoma, in 1890, envisioning it as the capital of this new state, which he hoped to name Lincoln. The idea was to encourage a massive migration of African Americans to the territory. If they could become the majority population, they could control the political process and create a society free from the oppression of Jim Crow. McCabe's movement gained traction, and thousands of black families moved to Oklahoma, establishing more than 50 all-black towns and settlements. These were communities built on hope and self-determination, with their own schools, businesses, and newspapers. Ultimately, the dream of a black state was defeated by political opposition and a surge of white settlement. But the legacy of these all-black towns and the vision of pioneers like Edward P. McCabe remains a powerful, though often overlooked, chapter in the story of the black freedom struggle in America. From an enslaved spy to an intersex general, a forgotten pandemic to a lost dream of a black state, these stories are far more than just historical trivia. They are vital pieces of the American puzzle. They challenge the simple, streamlined narratives we are often taught and reveal a past that is far more complex, diverse, and fascinating. They show us that heroes can be found in the most unexpected places and that even the most devastating events can be forgotten. By uncovering these hidden histories, we don't just learn about the past, we gain a fuller, more honest understanding of the present and the long, winding journey that brought us here. Thank you so much for joining me on this journey into America's hidden history. If you found these stories as fascinating as I do, please hit that like button and subscribe for more deep dives into the past. And I'd love to hear from you in the comments. What other forgotten stories from history do you think need to be told? Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.